Good morning, everyone. It is wonderful seeing everyone again this morning, and it's also wonderful hearing the chatter in the room. Thank you for taking the time to engage with one another. I think one of the things we had earnestly hoped for during this CMVF3C Symposium was for people to meet each other, to talk amongst yourselves, those who are friendly faces, those who are familiar faces, those who are soon to be friends and colleagues. So I'm glad that you've had a chance to engage. I hope that people online likewise are having an opportunity to meet each other. I wish that everyone who was online was actually able to be a little bit more engaged with us in the room here, and hopefully we'll be able to have an opportunity today to do some of that further engagement. This morning we have an opportunity to speak with a panel, again, drilling down today to the institutional level. So how do institutions, colleges, polytechnics, universities engage with the other organizations, with Canadian Armed Forces, with Veterans Affairs, with our partner organizations, family organizations, to be able to leverage post-secondary education. We're going to be meeting right away here with a panelist, a group of panelists. We'll have breakout rooms right after that. So again, we'll go into our breakout groups, online and in person. We'll come back together, have some large group discussions. We'll come up again with some action points. And then we're going to, after the break and all of that's done, we'll be by 11:45. We'll finish up at about 11:30 here in Alberta time. We'll be heading then onto a bus. For those of us in the room that are able to hop on a bus, we'll go out to the military base, where we'll be welcomed by the commander of 3rd Canadian Division, Brigadier General Stephen Graham, together with Captain Navy Gauthier, who we met yesterday, and also Lieutenant Colonel Al Wong, to go through a little bit of a briefing for about half an hour, and then we'll have a static display with them where we'll be introduced to a number of different elements of the military and have an opportunity to speak with military members, veterans, and some of the personnel who are available. Some of you in the room here are parts of those communities and units that might be able to provide some support. So hopefully we'll have a bit more opportunity to talk with each other too about what some of your specific roles are and how you facilitate, how you engage, how you can support. Opportunity for us who are not familiar with going on the military base to engage and to learn, to touch, and to understand better what happens on the base and break down some of those barriers so that we feel more comfortable reaching out to the Canadian Armed Forces and the Veterans Affairs units who are working very collaboratively in this space. So without further ado, I'm going to call up the moderator. So for this next panel, Amy Hunter will be moderating. Who else is in the room here? I'm going to ask for Kevin Friese to pop up. Alex is coming. Alex, I know this is your shining moment. And Suzanne Ferrier, if you can come. And then online we have a number of other people. Michelle Bolio, Jason Kerr, and Manon La Rochelle. So we're going to just be able to have an opportunity to listen to a panel talk about evolving military, veteran, and family-connected campuses, indicators, and best practices. And with that, I'm going to turn it on to Amy Hunter.
All right. Good morning, everyone. It's so nice to have got to meet everybody in the room, and thanks to those joining online. Today's panel is about evolving military, veteran, and family-connected campuses. I'm Amy Hunter, and I am the Senior Advisor to the Provost at the University of Regina. I'm also a core committee member of the CMVF3C, and I'm the moderator of this panel. Special thanks to our panelists and our panel participants who have agreed to share their experiences and expertise with us today. Our panelists bring diverse perspectives to this topic, and I'd like to call on each of them to briefly introduce themselves and share a little about their roles, backgrounds, institutions, and the lenses from which they want to approach this discussion. So let's start with online and Jason.
Good morning, everybody. Again, my name is Jason Kerr. I'm the Military Connected Campus Coordinator at Georgian College in Barrie. We basically have been working for the college for about a year to further our military connected strategy and provide supports, academic and student supports for families and veterans coming into college.
Is Manon online?
Yes, I am. Hi, Manon La Rochelle. I'm a pedagogical advisor in a CEGEP in Quebec, CEGEP Marie-Victorin, and I work for the RAC department, which is within the continuing education department. If I may, so that you understand later on what I'm talking about, I'd like just to give a brief description of what is a CEGEP and what is RAC. Is that okay? So a CEGEP in Quebec is a post-secondary institution that comes between high school and university. It's either a passage to go to university or to be in a program, in a technical program, usually a 3-year program. RAC, which stands for Recognition of Acquired Competencies, is aims a clientele which is adult who has work experience, significant work experience in connection with a program of study. And because these adults have learned a lot of things, they have developed their skills through work and volunteer experience or military experience. They come to us in order to get a diploma that matches their skills. So no matter their background, no matter how, when, where they have learned, we give them the chance to get this diploma that matches their skills.
Thank you so much. And Michelle, are you online?
Hello, bonjour, everyone. My name is Michel Beaulieu, and I'm the Associate Vice Provost Academic at Lakehead University. We're a multi-campus institution with campuses in Northern Ontario as well as in Simcoe County, covering both reserve as well as regular force units in our immediate sort of regional areas. Also the distinct pleasure of serving as the Honorary Colonel for Lake Superior Scotch Regiment, and also engaged with the CFLC Manitoba Northwest Ontario Committee. I would define my institution as sort of just beginning the journey. So a lot of what you'll hear comments from me comes from those multiple different roles, but my prime job within my university is sort of setting the stage and getting us ready to how we'd fit in with MTEP, but also where we can build those proper supports. So thank you. Nice seeing some familiar faces.
I'm Kevin Friese. I'm the Assistant Dean of Students at the University of Alberta, and I'm the co-lead for our Military and Veteran Family Connected initiative at the University of Alberta. So work very closely with Suzette and team on co-leading that initiative, and working very closely with a number of our services within the Dean of Students portfolio that are committed to supporting our students in their academic and life success.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Alex Petrick. I'm a student here at the University of Alberta. I'm also recently medically released from the Canadian Forces after 18 years. I retired as a warrant officer. The last 15 years of my career was spent in the military police. I finished off as a major crimes investigator with the Canadian Forces National Investigation Service. I've done a number of domestic international deployments, and I was on the Student Advisory Council here for the CMVF3C office at the University of Alberta before that closed and moved on to, new things.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Captain Suzanne Ferrier, and I'm the Transition Personnel Selection Officer for Alberta and the North. For those of you who don't know what a Personnel Selection Officer is, or a PSO, there's about 150 of us in the military. We have 4 of us in the room. It's a bunch of the ones back here. And one of our big roles with military members is that we do career and education counseling with military members, those who are in the military and who want to make changes and remuster to another occupation within, but we also help those who want to release and go into the civilian workplace. So the transition PSO position, so the TPSO, which is what I'm doing, is actually a new position for our occupation. And so far we only have 3 in the country, but the goal is to eventually have 9 so that we have 1 at each of the transition units. And our role is specifically to help members with their military to civilian transition. So a lot of what we do is helping people with their secondary career planning. We help with education to help figure out if members want to do post-secondary education upon release. If so, trying to figure out where is the best fit for them depending on what their goals and their interests are. And also a big part is what funding is available and how that works with their timeline. And we also help people who are medically releasing. So I'll be speaking to you today about my interests and my experiences with members in the counseling sessions that we have. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for sharing a bit about yourself. And before I open up our discussion, I want to briefly mention the Military Transition Engagement and Partnerships, MTEP, My Trusted Support Network's self-assessment for educational institutions. It's a mouthful. It's an institutional readiness scale that was developed to support institutions in registering for the National Resource Directory, the NRD. And while it's by no means comprehensive and not every post-secondary institution or PSI will necessarily see themselves represented in it, it can be a good starting point for institutions who are looking for guidance in how to become more military and veteran connected on their campuses. And the goal is that as we evolve our military and veteran connected campuses, this document will evolve with us, and institutions will be able to add items to the categories and to inform what it means to be MFV neutral, friendly, and ready, which is what the scale puts forward as options for institutional readiness. So that scale is available on the CMVF3C website, and if anybody wants to check that out, we can provide the link and the information for that. So with that, and Michelle already sort of started to answer this question, but I'd like to ask each of the PSI representatives to tell us a little bit about their institution's current state of readiness, or more generally, where they would consider their institution to be on the journey to supporting military and veteran connected individuals and their families. So Michelle, since you already started to talk about this, is there anything more that you want to add about your institutional state?
Yeah, I mean, my institution began a number of years ago, in part because we do have a long-standing relationship, particularly in Thunder Bay and Northwestern Ontario, with primarily reserve units within the Army, NAVRES, as well as some within the Air Force, and also the Canadian Rangers. And from there, we knew anecdotally that we did have a lot of personnel who were serving, who were currently students, definitely individuals who were also employees of the university, as well as other post-secondary providers within our regions. So we began to undertake, again, I wouldn't say necessarily concentrated, but somewhat haphazard, but nonetheless, a bit of an examination of understanding where there might be challenges faced by those within CAF. Myself as a former chair of a department, as well as with individuals and adjuncts and knowing them, and it's a small community. So you go down to the armory on a Tuesday night, that's when we parade, and you hear through the grapevine in terms of issues that folks within post-secondary are facing. From there, we did establish a presidential advisory committee that began to look at a way of bringing together folks to start gathering data. Because again, that was one of the things that we are, and to be honest, we still are missing, is in terms of beyond the anecdotal. We began to take advantage, sort of listening, learning from colleagues at other post-secondary institutions. And I know many of you around this call, for example, were folks we reached out to. I would say one of the key things, though, was also doing a bit of an environmental scan and a bit of an analysis of currently what we did have, trying to understand, what were some of the things and some of the rationale that went into it. From there, when you look at what's on the screen in the MTEP, I mean, we're all over the place. So when I say we're very nascent in the beginning of this and understanding, some of my colleagues, I mean, Jason and what's occurring at Georgian College, I mean, we're quite far away from that. But we do hit upon multiple things that you actually have seen here. I mean, we do have scholarships that were established. We did engage with an Apple when that was operating. And that honestly was one of the key things, I think, moving forward that we were using as sort of a launching into this wholeheartedly. The dispensation policy development and trying to do what we could using existing resources. So we're somewhere, I wouldn't say we're MVF neutral. Definitely we fall within MVF friendly, but we do have some things that actually go across each of the three categories. So that, yeah, so there's just a bit of context.
Thank you so much. Manon, do you want to go next?
Yes, sure. So our institution would stand, I would consider ourselves maybe MVF friendly, but and we would like, to go further. It's not perfect. We don't do everything that is under that column, but again, our journey started a few years ago also. We happened to have a contact, a career counselor, civil career counselor, who was working on military bases in Quebec. And she believed in RAC, in PLAR. So she gave us the opportunity to make presentations on military bases and to participate to fairs a number of times. And that really helped us make, to let military people know what is PLAR and how it works and how it can be useful to them during their military career or transitioning towards a civil career. And for a few years, it was really popular, and we had many CAF members who came to us, and the success was great. I mean, those who applied, they really finished and completed their programs with success, and it gave motivation to the others to do the same. We unfortunately have lost this contact. She went on maternity leave, she came back, and then she left. And right now we don't have any contact with CAF vet or whatever. So we are looking for a contact or more than one contacts to make this connection between our institution and all CEGEPs. I'm from Marie-Victorin, but all CEGEPs offer hundreds of programs entirely done through a PLAR process. So I think it's something very appealing for CAF members and veterans or their family who would have a certain experience, work experience in a certain field. We tried also, we were also engaged with Apple, but to be frank, it didn't bring us any students at all. I think it was not that well known in the east of Canada. It was more known in the west, and I had nobody that came from Apple. And now we are partners with CMVF3C in order to reconnect and make this connection again with you. One of our strengths is certainly our strong, very strong PLAR process. We not only, so all CEGEPs, as I said, offer programs. We not only, well, first of all, we do credit transfer. So any studies that was previously finished, completed, succeeded, we recognize that and we can give credit transfer. And then with what's left in the program, if people have a strong experience connected with the programs, they can do it entirely through PLAR process. So they don't have any courses to attend, which is great, which makes it shorter, cheaper, and there's a lot more motivation that come with it. One of our interest also in being with CMVF3C is to share our practices. I think that could inspire other university to do something similar, because I've heard yesterday and throughout the different meetings that some are just beginning, or a student can challenge a university to get maybe one course, two courses through PLAR, but with us, it's the whole program. So I think it's great and it's motivating for the person. And where we're going, our next step is to design 2 more web pages on our website, one in French, one in English, because we have the majority of our programs are in French, but we have 4 of them in English. And we would like to design these pages, especially for CAF veteran and their family. So the visuals, the information that will be posted will be adapted especially to that. So that's my project for the following weeks or month. I think that at the beginning of the fall, we should have these pages so that Millery can identify themselves and find, the information that they need in order to make a decision if they want to file an application or not. And one of another strength that we have is that the PLAR process is really individualized. So we know our students by name, we know their profile, we know, and they know that they can contact us by phone or email at any moment. From the very beginning, from the information session, which is mandatory, they know they can call us and we'll just help them and we'll support them. So that's one of our strengths. And for the rest, if we look at the MDEP chart, well, of course, there are plenty of other things that we can do in the future, but we just go one step at a time. As I said, right now we're trying to making contacts and designing our webpage so that people get the feeling that they're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Manon. Must have her recruiter hat on. I recognize that well from my days as a recruiter. A very nice pitch for CEGEP, and also thank you for sharing the information on everything that you've been working on so far. Let's go to Jason.
Yes. So Georgian College has announced itself as a military-connected college about 2 years ago, I think right before the CMVF3C made their announcement that this was starting. A lot of the groundwork was done prior to me coming in, so that MVF neutral stage where we were exploring, the value of supporting the community was all done, I think, prior to me coming on. And now at this point, where we're pushing through our MVF friendly and MVF ready stages, we're just sort of putting the finishing touches on certain things, bringing in supports that we didn't have before. And I feel like it's having a dedicated office and a dedicated space and a person that's working on this, be it part-time or full-time, to help put these services in place has actually really helped us kind of move from that neutral to that ready side of the scale. We really started from base. We had discussions with a local business to help us out to start to make sure that we were on the right track and that we were on offering the correct services. But really it came from buy-in from our senior leadership team that a lot of this came out to be that they were willing to support it and willing to help us put everything in place. So yeah, I'd say right now we're in that ready stage, offering different PLAR, offering basically we'll be starting to offer courses for our faculty and our support staff to understand what a military connected student is and how they can help support them and how they can understand the culture and the lifestyle that comes with that. And yeah, we're just slowly moving forward, helping out other institutions now too, being part of the CMVF3C and trying to, make sure things are in place so that we can share what the work we've been doing.
Great. Lots of really good information that's been shared. Thank you to my fellow panelists. I would say the University of Alberta is currently in a state of transition with our military veteran-friendly campus initiative. As some of you are aware, we received some 3-year funding support that Suzette and I were able to direct towards the creation of some of the interventions that have been rolled out to our campus community with regards to the MVFC and creating that sandbox that she talked about to look at how we can replicate that experience at other Alberta institutions. During the course of that work, one of the first things that was really important to us was rolling out some self-assessment on the applications for new students to assess, self-identify rather, their status as either a current military member within the Canadian Armed Forces or a veteran, reservist and so forth, to try to get a sense of what are we actually talking about in terms of representation within our community. And we had no sense of that. And I know from working with some of our Alberta partners, many are in the same boat. So that was really key to starting our journey. Along the way, we very early on began to establish relationships with Veteran Affairs Canada, with Canadian Armed Forces, with our TG group, to help to inform and develop that alongside our students and our advisory committee. To help to shape what that looked like and make sure what we were putting in place actually made sense and met the needs of students. Work was done on a mentorship program for our community, along with an orientation that was contextualized for veterans and military students, military members rather. Working on pathways to care, we heard quite a bit yesterday around pathways and wanting to establish those pathways, whether it was career pathways, PLAR, mental health and social pathways and so forth. So there was quite a bit of work that had been done on that, along with establishing specific connection points for accommodations on campus, as well as academic supports and services, some career support work that had been done. The PLAR journey we heard a lot about as well yesterday, and I would say that's an area that we're in the very early stages. We have done some one-on-one support for students with regards to credit recognition and support, but there's a great deal more work that's had to happen. We had joined with the Ann Apple group in those conversations, and we've continued to work with partner institutions at the national level on those discussions, but there's work to be done there. We also very early on established connection points within our registrar's office that are dealing with the intake and admissions of new students and identifying individuals that we could work and collaborate with in that regard. I think in terms of areas for us to continue to work on, as I said, we're in a state of transition. With the funding ending in the spring, we've now taken those key learnings and we're looking at how we can embed those key learnings into our existing supports and resources within the community. So the Dean of Students and the University of Alberta remains wholly committed to supporting our veteran students and our military members. We're working closely with Mebi, who's here today, and some of our team to look at how we transition from the physical space that we had previously to what that might look like now. Interesting that Mebi and her team are actually moving into the space where the MVFC previously had resided, so there may be a very natural transition in that regard. Yesterday we heard a lot about family support, and that's an area that we had discussed in terms of a real need, and so I think there's an opportunity to continue to look at how that's incorporated into that work. As well as continuation on having that dedicated navigation piece. We certainly saw, I think, the benefit of having a dedicated navigator who can help with those complex pathways that often exist in our bureaucracies, both CAF and VAC related, as well as on the post-secondary campus. So those would be areas that I think that we've addressed and need to continue to work on at the U of A.
Great. Thank you so much. And just to shift the question a little bit, Alex, I'd like to ask you to tell us about your experience at the University of Alberta, and particularly about the supports and services from the MVFC there.
Sure, thanks, Amy. So my transition from the military to the university was actually relatively smooth, which is not necessarily the case for a lot of people. I knew what I wanted to do, which was to upgrade my education and take advantage of the the opportunity through Manulife and SISIP and the programs that we had. I was a bit of a policy nerd just by virtue of my occupation, so I did read through my transition guide and the VAC guide and all the other policy things, and so I was able to actively participate in the transition process and make sure that, as much as I could, that the timelines lined up for things like starting a program in September, right? So making sure that my release coincided with and allowed me to start my program in September. It's not the case for many military members releasing, and what David said yesterday about transitioning to an individual is scary, right? And a lot of people have a hard time with it. So this is, in my opinion, the easy part of the transition. The hard part was getting into university. The application itself, right, can be confusing. Choosing a program can be confusing or difficult, right? For me, I kind of, as I've discussed with a few people, I sort of fell into it, the program that I'm in, but it's difficult to find out, right? What do your experiences best translate to? What do you want to do when you grow up, right? All of those things you need some guidance with, and a lot of people in the military are not suited to give you that guidance. So the application at the University of Alberta, like Kevin said, thanks, as Kevin said, allows for self-ID as a military member or a veteran, which allowed the MVFC office to actually reach out to me and start supporting me in that process, which was excellent, because when it came to transfer credits, which I'll talk about in a second, it was a real challenge. But one of the biggest questions when I was applying was, am I applying as a new student? Am I applying as a mature student? Or am I applying as a transfer student? Right? And so digging into the policies again, right? Just like for us looking at, what constitutes an assault, right? And you look at all the elements. Okay, so looking at the policy to say, okay, well, here's what a new student is, here's what a mature student is, here's what a transfer student is, and I fit all three of those categories. So which one is the university going to actually enroll me as, right? So this is the importance of the navigator position at the MVFC, and Jeffrey was excellent and super instrumental. And the transfer credit piece, I enrolled as an open studies student, and so the transfer credit talk was sort of happening after the enrollment, but I did college 20 years beforehand, right? So a lot of the courses that I was looking to transfer were, I don't know, long gone or changed or whatever the case was, and I had no idea that the university, like Jeffrey, the navigator, had to go to each faculty, to each department, and advocate and fight my case to get those transfer credits, right? And so out of the 2 years, I got most of it transferred thanks to the navigator. If he wasn't there, and if I just assumed that I submit the paperwork to the university and the university does this thing, and I would have gotten half of that maybe, right? So I would have been delayed by a good year and a half at least. So the MVFC office itself, and then Ken already talked about a lot of the benefits and the things that presented, but I just want to highlight a few things. So it had its own space, right, which was a safe sort of space, if I can call it that, for military members and veterans who are going to be overwhelmed with the university experience, right, with classes and courses and the noise and the hustle and bustle of university campus, right, to be able to go and find somewhere that's theirs. The navigator position is crucial, right? They're able to provide advice, to give support, to have that institutional knowledge, and to be able to do that academic advising piece, which is critical for student success. And then, of course, Kevin already mentioned the Student Advisory Committee and the Peer Mentorship Program. And the one thing that I want to also highlight is the MVFC-specific orientation that we did, which was excellent. It was a room that was filled with about as many people as we see here, if not more. I'm not exactly sure of the numbers, but it was specific to military members and veteran students at the university. Because let me tell you, when you're, 20 years older than most of the people at the orientation, and the orientation is all about, games and fun things and experiencing all the cool things about university, and it just doesn't speak to you, and you're standing off to the side, and people confuse you for a professor or like, it's different, right? And it's not necessarily helpful to me to find out what I need to know, where things are and where the resources are that I need to access. So having that MVFC specific orientation, which is like a full day thing, was outstanding.
Thank you so much. And Suzanne, I'd like to adapt the question a little for you as well and ask you further to this topic, if you could tell us a little about some of the common questions and concerns that CAF members who you work with bring forward, and especially in relation to what issues might impact their choices in post-secondary education.
Great, Amy. And Alex was a great introduction for many of the things that I do see with members. So I want to remind you that when I see military members is when they're considering going to school. I don't hear back as much once they've actually started. But there's 6 different themes of concerns or questions that we do tend to hear on a regular basis. The first, which we've discussed a ton already, is of course is about PLARs. And members want to know, they don't have that formal education, whether or not the skills they've achieved through their military courses and their experiences, if they can be PLAR'd or not. But in addition to that, though, they find it so confusing to figure out how to find out that information. So they come to me and they're like, well, I have all this, but where do I go? What do I do next? And so they find the websites on the university, post-secondary institution websites confusing. They're not sure who to contact. So we help to try to navigate the process and to help them find out who those contact people are so that they can ask those questions. The next thing is about meeting prerequisites for the courses that they want to do. And like Alex mentioned, they're not sure what category they're in, if they're mature students, if they're not mature students. They get very intimidated when they look at the courses that are required because they don't necessarily have them. There are some members who have been in the military for a good 10, 20 years, and they may not have even completed their high school yet. And so they don't know what to do and how best to get to that end goal. And then they're very confused about, well, what's the difference between a GED versus a high school diploma versus a high school equivalency diploma? What are the post-secondary institutions going to recognize? Which one do they do if they have to take courses? So, and it's very difficult to find that information for them again. So we try to help them get through that process. The next question, which is huge, is about funding availability and also about the timelines. And this is particularly important for those who are medically releasing because they do have timelines for when the funding is available. As Alex mentioned himself through CSUP, they have up to 2 to 2.5 years that they can have funding, but they have to have that piece of paper at the end. They have to have that certificate or that diploma completed in order to be funded for that program. So oftentimes this causes members to have to, you may be interested in a certain program, but then they have to compromise because it doesn't fit within that time frame. So they might want to do a degree, but it doesn't fit in that 2-year time that they have available. So then they'll settle for something else. So to try to get around that, we help them a lot of times try to find certificate or diploma kind of programs that can then have credits that are transferred over to the next step. So then once they do release, then maybe they can get money from VAC through the education and training benefit to do those remaining years. Another huge thing that we have with concerns is fear of failure. Again, a lot of these members have not been in school for a very, very long time. And when they were in school, a lot of times they weren't successful to begin with. So they're very, very nervous and overwhelmed about the idea of going, and especially investing time into a 4-year program, because they don't even know if they can accomplish 1 or 2 courses because it's been such a long time for them. And on top of that, we do have people who are dealing with mental and physical issues too. So they don't know if they take the courses, if they will be actually physically or mentally capable of doing that. So for them to go into enroll into a 4-year program and not know if they're going to be successful, and since some of the funding when they're in the military, they have to actually successfully complete it in order to get reimbursed for it. So it is sometimes, it's a huge barrier for people because they just don't know. And so that's where, again, a lot of the smaller, like doing certificates and micro-certifications and things might help them to just build that confidence to realize, oh, hey, I can do this. And so we try to, again, find ways to work around that. The next one, again, is about flexibility, which we've talked quite a bit about yesterday and then even this morning. And it's about whether or not they do courses online versus in person, things that are available off hours, because a lot of times members are still working full-time, so they need to do that. But then they also have the issues if they're going to be posted, if they're going to be deployed, if they're on exercise, they might not be able to complete their courses in that time frame, or they might get posted to a different province, and then whether or not this is going to work for them. So again, we're trying to troubleshoot and figure out how to get around that. And the last main thing we talk about quite a bit is for those who are still in the military and want to stay. There's some non-commissioned members who want to become officers. And in order to do that, they need to have a degree. And we have some great subsidized education programs that are available in the military. There's one called the University Training Plan for Non-Commissioned Members. So it's the UTPNCM. However, in order to be eligible to apply for this program, they have to complete 4 credits first. So they have to do this on their own time with their own money, unless they can get reimbursed. And so it's for 12 credit hours. The reasoning behind that is they want to make sure that people have academic success before the military is going to commit to a 4-year degree. So again, for them, for members, they can go and they can take these courses. However, there's no guarantee they're going to even get into that program. So they're spending all that time. And if you only take 4 courses, you don't actually have anything necessarily to show for that if you don't get in the program. So again, it's one of those things in trying to find things that will either help increase your competitiveness in order to become an officer, so doing leadership or management courses, or also about seeing if we can find those certificate type programs where those courses are included. So then even if they don't get accepted into the program to become an officer, at least they have some kind of certificate to show for all the work that they did. So those were the main things that I could think of so far for concerns.
Thank you so much. Lots to learn there and a lot to connect for PSIs to connect with PSOs and others. So thank you. I know that we have a couple minutes left, so I'd just like to ask each of the PSI reps to share quickly, in under 2 minutes, let's say, some advice that you would give to other PSIs who are wanting to take steps towards institutional readiness or becoming MVFCs. So let's go back online and go to Jason.
I'd say that I'd say is getting buy-in from your senior leadership teams. Forming those building blocks right off the bat through advisory committees to start those steps, and noticing that even offering little things, it goes a long way for veterans. So basically, one of our military connected veterans who came back to school, he got 1 comms credit PLARD for his service, and that allowed him time to start to fit in the college world. It allowed him to get some work done on his career side of things and work on a resume. It allowed him time to play sports, so he didn't feel out of place within the college dynamic. So I think that having even just baby steps and getting those baby steps in first is the biggest thing, and not trying to start with a mansion, but start with those building blocks. Any veterans or families coming in will be thankful for even those small steps.
Thank you so much. Manon?
Yeah, I do agree with you. Each small step, will be easier to reach, and it will make a difference. So I really encourage you to set objectives and go one little thing at a time. In my experience, I would say that you can do it alone. You have to ask again and again and again, and to talk to people around you within your institution. So I had been asking to my coordinator for a website page for about 2 years. And finally she said, okay, go, we do it, so we have to repeat and don't get discouraged. And one day, we'll get things done, and to make connections also with people, within your institution and outside also with the CAF and VAC, so that you can really build something.
Michelle?
Yeah, I mean, I would echo Jason and Manon. What I would add to, this is something that I've actually been thinking through in my head as well. Not to say that I've done it the way it should be, but hindsight, I would do it differently. I think key is coordination. I think key is breaking down silos. I think both also leveraging internal and external networks. I think is also one of the key things is developing a culture of understanding. You know, one of the things that we do really, really well, I think, within the post-secondary sector and across the country, colleges, universities, or even Indigenous education institutes, is understanding, you know, the various diversity of students that we do have and learners. The one area that I've found, and I know a number of colleagues, probably both in the room as well as online, is that there is a tendency, because of that lack of culture of understanding, of those who are currently within CAF, those who have recently released, those who are thinking of releasing, and how we treat them as a distinct learner, a distinct entity coming forward. And some of that, I think, is breaking down those silos. I mean, there are some that, you know, as many of you know, that for various reasons have traditionally in the past existed between post-secondary institutions and the Canadian Armed Forces. So that's the first thing that needs to be tackled. Second thing also is having folks in positions to be working on this that either have already pre-existing understanding or are open enough to listen to develop an understanding in terms of moving forward. Because I mean, that in my view is what's required to move forward in a good way in order to actually address some of the very issues, challenges, but also I think the opportunities, because that's something as well that I think that is part of that moving forward discussion, is that there is a lot of, as speaking to the crowd here, but a lot of transferable skills, a lot of benefits to our institutions, to society, to our regions. And I think it's also changing that dialogue, changing the nature of the discussion through that culture of understanding.
Thank you so much. Alex, I'm going to skip you and go to Suzanne. You get the last word, so you can have more time to think about your response. But Suzanne, given what you just told us about the challenges and issues that people face when they come to you, what possibilities and opportunities do you see for PSIs and PSOs to work collaboratively together?
Well, I think for sure we need to have a lot better communication and collaboration between the PSOs and the PSIs. Oftentimes, if military members want to go and pursue education, the first place they go is to the PSO. And so we need to be more informed about what kind of programs are there, who the contact people are, and any of the opportunities so that we can then tell the members. And it would also be helpful if there was a military liaison person who is maybe available at the different academic institutions so we can then refer members to those individuals. And another thing that we're trying to do now is like some career and education fairs. So this is something, we have one coming up on June 13th at the base. And this is where we're hoping to have different academic institutions to go and put up a booth so then our members can go just on the base and go and actually chat with people to find out a little bit more about the programs. And this, even like I said, we have one, this is kind of my plug too, so we have one on June 13th, but I'm having a hard time finding the contact people at certain academic institutions just in Edmonton alone, and it is taking me forever to navigate the website to find who to contact and then being forward to other ones. So if we could find that kind of information, it would be great.
Apologies, I skipped you, just like dove right into that, but would you like to offer some advice?
That I would just. So I think one of the first things is to find a group or consortium that is of like-minded people, and luckily we have one right here. So I think this is an excellent starting place for institutions that are wanting to change their supports and undertake this journey. I think looking at this as a whole journey view. So not just at an intake point or not just at the point that students arrive on campus, but looking at it from the point of view of how are we supporting students before they arrive, prospective students who are going to have a lot of questions and are just starting to try to navigate that journey experience that you talked about, Alex, all the way through their initial time on campus, but through their journey as they progress through their academics to the point that they're looking at then transitioning out of the institution and into their careers and into life. So looking at that higher level view. Previously, building partnerships was mentioned. That's absolutely critical. We don't need to go it alone, and we can't. So having those partnerships is really important. Senior leadership support. That plays into sustainability. It plays into where do the priorities go when it comes to the services that are being provided on post-secondary campuses, and so absolutely critical. And don't try to do everything at once. There's a lot that can be done, and there's a lot of really good work that different institutions are doing. But I think the importance of identifying and being really clear about your vision and the scope of what it is that we're trying to accomplish and where we're starting, and trying to do that in a sustainable way.
Great. Thank you so much. All right, Alex, it's your last question. From the student perspective, do you have any advice for these PSIs who are taking steps? And additionally, what advice would you give to other military-connected students and families who want to connect with PSIs?
I'm going to try to be quick because I know we're running out of time. So the big things to consider for the PSIs is really the kinds of students that you're gonna have. And I know Lieutenant Colonel Wong talked yesterday about the different types of military-connected students, right? Force Reserve, part-time, full-time, right? But you're gonna have a range from, you know, a veteran with 20 years experience to somebody who's 19-year-old and a reservist who just entered the military and the PSI. But the other thing you need to consider is the level of connectivity to the CAF, right? And what I mean by that is you're gonna have members who are still in the CAF, Reg Force or Reserve, recently retired or released who left on good terms. They have a good connection back to the CAF. But you're also going to have people who retired or released who were harmed by the institution, right? And so that's going to be a barrier for them to integrate within the military-friendly campus network. And so that's something to consider as well. And that's sort of talks about this social integration piece, and I want to sort of draw on what Dr. Hamner talked about yesterday about identity, purpose, and belonging, right? Building that culture. I mean, the military, the way it works is it's built on rules and regulations and orders and customs, right? It's predictable because the world out there is not predictable, right? It's chaotic, and the military doesn't deploy just for the fun of it. It deploys into chaos, and so that stability, for lack of a better term, that the military institution offers is what counterbalances the chaos, right? So having the MVFC community, the office, whatever the terminology is, to provide that level of stability and predictability is important. And finally, as far as the MVFC office, I would offer that, like, what does success look like for a well-run MVFC office? And the way I see it is, again, going back to that identity, purpose, and belonging piece, I would offer 4 pillars: camaraderie, support, advocacy, and community engagement. All right, camaraderie is pretty self-evident. The support piece, right, you're talking about the peer mentorship programs. The advocacy is probably the biggest part of it, and that's where the navigator comes in, the student advisory council comes in, and it helps build that cultural awareness that goes both ways, right? Learning the military culture and learning the university culture. And finally, probably the hardest piece is the community engagement, but that's what gives members that sense of purpose, right? Basically, it gives them a job to do within the university community. And so, for example, why not include them in transition center briefings or presentations, MFRC, the education fair, right? Include them in outreach to prospective students. They have a lot of leadership skills, right? A lot of leadership experience. I know many post-secondary institutions have leadership colleges on campus, right? You know, we have the Peter Lougheed Leadership College right on campus, right next door to the MFC office, and as far as I know, there's not really a whole lot of communication between them, right? So, you know, leveraging those skills and the experience of the military-connected students really helps increase the visibility so that people who are not aware of the MVFC programs, who aren't necessarily confident enough to self-identify as military-connected students, will see that visibility and will be more willing to participate in that program.
Thank you so much. I just want to sincerely thank all of our panelists, these amazing colleagues and friends who have so much wealth of knowledge to share with us, and I hope that we'll continue the connection and that you will get to connect with the people both in this room and virtually. And closing, I just want to say I'm really honored to be a part of the panel and the consortium. I just wanted to share one thing with you, that the University of Regina's motto is actually "as one who serves," and indeed it's one of the few Canadian university mottos that's in English instead of Latin. It's a purposeful signal of our commitment to openness and accessibility. And while the context of the motto is significantly different than what you know, military service, it does really call to me as a reminder to remain accessible and to serve in my own ways our students and our communities and our society. So take that with you, I hope, if you can, into our conversation period, and thank you so much for listening today. Do we have questions?
I have questions. All right. Well, sincere thanks to my co-panelists and to the wonderful, rich information that was provided. We are now going to jump into our next critical conversation following the same format that we did yesterday. And as you'll observe, we're going to get the questions up on the screen here so that everybody can see the content for what we're going to be discussing. Our approach yesterday was to sort of start at the broad level, and now we're working down to, if we're following praxis, to kind of where the rubber hits the road and getting down into those really invaluable bits of information that help organizations to get started. So we will be breaking up the online group into meeting rooms again. They'll be provided with a link to a Jamboard that they can use to populate their answers. And then again, here in the room, encouraging tables to merge together if there's only a couple of you at a table, and undertake those conversations. Our questions. So this conversation is really delving into evolving the MVFC campuses, learning from what we've heard this morning and learning from what's already working well on campuses. So what worked well? What would you do differently? What specifics do post-secondaries that are looking at becoming MVFCs need to know? And looking ahead, what are the key priorities or goals that your post-secondary institution has set or needs to set to further strengthen its role as an MVFC? And of course, we've got many partners in the room, so there are different perspectives that will come to the table around this. So I encourage you to use these as starting points for the conversation, but obviously bring your knowledge, your skill set to the table for those discussions. We'll undertake this conversation, and then we'll move into a brief break and synthesis. And I'm going to let Suzette come in and tell me what's changed about that.
Thank you for the panelists and the rich discussion. As you're going into your groups, just an encouragement to think about 3 levels. From a post-secondary perspective, there's how does a post-secondary institution support the students, the military members, veterans, and their families? So that's one layer. Another layer is, what do you do at the institutional level to support and create what has been described as that culture? So what things does an institution need to put in place? Where are you in terms of putting those things in place to support the institution to be able to have the policies in place, the cultural awareness, the faculty to be able to be aware and knowledgeable about what they need, the orientation packages that we've heard about. So how does the institution support, and not just the supporting the student, but also receiving the expertise, the leadership, as Alex mentioned? How do we draw on and have it be a rich environment that leverages everybody's expertise and allows everyone to thrive? So how does the institution prepare its faculty, its staff, all of those layers? Then there's the networking that goes out. What kind of relationships need to be built out within the Canadian Armed Forces, Veterans Affairs, with other partner agencies and organizations? How does it reach out to a network within a region? How does it reach into the Canadian context or beyond? So think about the micro, meso, macro levels, if I can encourage that, as you're thinking and engaging in your discussion, just to kind of organize your thinking. Otherwise, you're going to be kind of all over the place. which is good too. But so either popcorn it all over the place or kind of organize yourselves. You can use the indicators that are from MTEP as a guide. What is, and maybe we can get that put up as well, the indicators that are from, being friendly to being ready, and see where things are and how people can move across that continuum. Okay, thank you.
All right, so we'll move into our discussions now. We had a break set for 10:30. I think we'll try to stay close to that. Maybe we'll give 20 minutes and plan to come back and into the break period at about 25 to. Thank you.